Welcome to the Creator's Covenant, a modern exploration of timeless truths of faith. Centered on the Quran as the sole source, we examine sacred texts, history, and science to reveal humanity's purpose, our bond with the Creator, and our destiny beyond life. Discover divine wisdom and Quranic insights.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take complex source material academic research, intellectual battles, detailed notes, and we try to distill it all down to pure, actionable knowledge.
Exactly.
And our mission today is, well, it's a fascinating one. We're looking at a high-stakes intellectual battleground.
It really is.
And what's so interesting is that it's not a fight about history or, archaeology. This is a high-noon duel fought entirely with the tools of textual mastery, pure formal logic, and the profound, almost explosive power of linguistic precision.
That's absolutely the right way to frame it. We are dissecting a duel where the challenger, a human intellectual, we're talking about Dr. Khaled Waleid here, took on an expert system, an advanced AI.
Right.
And the whole debate hinged on the meaning and function of two names for one sacred place, Makkah and Bakkah.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, this isn't about proving they are two separate cities.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a view that's easily dismissed by just looking at a map.
Oh, absolutely not. No, the point was far more subtle and much more profound. It's about proving they are a functional pair, a duality, or as it's called in Arabic, a zargia, within the text itself.
A functional pair.
Yes. So we're really going to be analyzing the specific methodological steps, the intellectual judo moves that allowed the human to secure a decisive victory over the systematic, exhaustive machine.
And what I find so captivating here, the real intellectual tension, is that the challenge was accepted under the AI's own, incredibly rigorous rules.
The AI set the terms.
It set the terms. No historical baggage allowed. No traditional exegesis, which is huge. It was just pure text, pure language, and pure logic.
A completely sterile environment.
Exactly. And the challenger's core hypothesis, the one he had to prove against this machine, was that Makkah and Bakkah are not mere synonyms. They are two functional poles related to a single greater entity.
A single reality.
This is just an incredible exercise in source analysis. So, okay, let's unpack the battlefield that the AI first established.
Right. And to really appreciate the elegance, the beauty of the human challenger's win, we first have to understand the logical fortress the expert system built for itself.
It built its own castle.
It did. It began by establishing an incredibly strict, almost minimalist methodological framework. And this was designed specifically to strip away all subjective human interpretation, all tradition, all non-textual assumptions. It was meant to be Spartan, clean, undeniable.
So the AI is acting like a digital judge here, and it's establishing the rules of evidence before any argument is even presented.
That's a perfect analogy.
So what were the only things allowed into this theoretical courtroom? What were the tools?
The system outlined 4 permitted tools. These are the only instruments of analysis sanctioned for this deep dive.
Okay, what's number 1?
First, the entire Quranic text itself. Complete, exhaustive, and it was to be the sole arbiter of truth. No outside texts.
The single source of truth. Got it.
Second, Arabic linguistics. But, and this is key, not just a casual understanding. We're talking deep dives into semantics, morphology, which is the very structure of words and syntax, the arrangement of sentences.
So the heavy-duty linguistic machinery.
The heaviest. Third, formal logic, meaning every argument had to follow the rules of deduction, induction, and rigorous consistency checks. It had to hold up under any counter-argument, no fallacies.
And the fourth tool, which I imagine is often the AI's trump card, in simplifying explanations.
Occam's razor, exactly. The principle of parsimony.
Right.
This dictates that the simplest explanation that accounts for all the textual evidence without, requiring the invention of extra entities or concepts or assumptions, that's the correct one.
So the human challenger was in a tough spot. If the AI could explain Makkah and Bakkah as a single thing using just one simple principle, he would have to dismantle that principle with even greater precision.
He would have to be sharper than the razor.
That sets the stage perfectly for the AI's power. Simplification and comprehensiveness. Now, tell us about the no-fly zone. What did the AI absolutely forbid the human challenger from using?
Okay, this is critical for you to understand because it shows the constraints.
Yeah.
There were 4 absolute exclusions designed to isolate the debate purely within the text.
A quarantine zone for ideas.
You would say that. The AI banned no history, so no external chronicles of events, no biography, so no using the seerah of the prophet, no archaeology or artifacts.
And the last one is the big one.
It's huge, absolutely. No traditional exegesis. That dreaded phrase, Simalyon, what the commentators said, was strictly forbidden.
Oh.
Yeah. The AI saw this entire traditional knowledge base as a source of prejudgment, of intellectual contamination, really. It wanted to test the text in vacuo, completely on its own terms.
That sets an incredibly, almost unfairly high bar. The AI wasn't just challenging the human-specific idea, it was challenging the very foundation upon which, centuries of religious understanding are often built. Forcing the human to derive everything anew solely from the text.
It was ensuring that the final conclusion, whether it ended up supporting singularity or duality, was derived solely from the internal logic of the Quran.
Okay, so how did the AI begin its own case within these rules?
Well, to start its own argument, the AI insisted on using 2 non-overlapping verses. This was a very strategic move.
Why strategic?
It established the initial functional roles of Bakkah and Makkah independently, you see, to avoid a circular argument where one's definition depends on the other's.
So it's isolating the variables. What were the functional definitions the AI established from these 2 verses?
Okay, so the first baseline was verse 3.96, which mentions Bakkah. This is the verse that defines the site as the first house placed for humanity awwal bait wudiya linnas.
The first house.
The first house. But what's critical here is the descriptive language used. Bakkah is described with attributes of pure blessing and guidance. It is mubarakan wa huda lillanin.
So blessed and guidance for the worlds.
Exactly. This verse speaks of ultimate origin, a pure spiritual function, universal benefit. There is absolutely no mention of conflict or prohibition or restriction here. It's all positive emanation.
Pure, unadulterated spiritual origin and light. Got it. And the second verse, for Makkah.
That was verse 48.24. And it couldn't be more different in tone. This verse mentions Makkah, and it's situated entirely within the context of a historical confrontation, conflict resolution, and most importantly, containment.
Containment.
Yes, it speaks of God restraining hands, kafa aydiyahum ankum. So Makkah, in this context, is linked to a specific, almost political or military outcome after a very tense standoff.
So, based purely on these 2 independent verses, the AI established a polarity from the get-go. Bakkah is the blessed origin guidance pole.
Right.
And Makkah is the conflict restraint resolution pole. But the AI didn't stop there, did it? It immediately shifted to using formal logic to undermine the idea of them being 2 distinct places.
Exactly. This is the AI's core strength, its exhaustive capacity for systematic negation. It performed a comprehensive system scan based on one simple piece of logic.
Which was?
If Bakkah and Makkah were truly 2 different places, the Quran, being a text of ultimate, precise definition, must contain specific linguistic evidence of that distinction. It's a simple logical test. If 2 things exist separately, the text must, at some point, delineate their relationship.
And this is the AI's initial evidence against the human challenger's duality hypothesis. It's a case built on absence.
A case built on absence, a very powerful one.
So what were the 6 missing distinctions that it flagged?
The absence of these 6 points was the AI's proof of singularity. First, distance. The AI noted that the Quran has 0 verses mentioning the distance between them. It doesn't say, from Bakkah you travel to Makkah, or describe one as being close to the other.
Nothing like that.
Nothing. Logically, if they were separate, even neighboring places, this relationship would have to be textually marked somewhere, but it's not.
A total geographical void between them in the text.
Total void. Second, transition or movement. The Quran is rich in language describing travel between distinct religious sites. Think about the movement between Al-Masjid al-Haram and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa.
It's explicitly described.
Very explicitly. Yet, the text never describes a person moving between Bakkah and Makkah. It never uses transitional phrases like, when you finish your rites in Bakkah, then you should proceed to Makkah.
Right.
This absence of any transitional language strongly suggests they are one and the same destination.
That's a compelling point. I mean, if you use 2 names for your home city, say you call it the Windy City in Chicago.
Yeah.
You don't describe moving from the Windy City to Chicago. You're just there.
Precisely. That's a perfect analogy. Then third and fourth, and you can group these together. Differing rituals or qibla.
The direction of prayer.
Right. If they were distinct entities, they might logically possess separate ritual practices, perhaps a Hajj for one and a separate pilgrimage for the other. But the text only ever refers to one house, one direction of prayer, one Qibla, and one unified set of rituals associated with the Masjid al-Haram.
And those are always tied to Makkah.
Invariably, there is simply no mention anywhere of a mosque of Bakkah or separate prayer instructions for a place called Bakkah.
So ritually and structurally, they're completely unified in the text.
Completely. Fifth, directional coding. The Quran employs directional language constantly, east and west, near and far. It's a very spatially aware text,
Sure.
but it never uses spatial coordinates to separate these two names. It never says, for example, Bakkah is in the inner valley while Makkah is near the pass, or Bakkah is to the west of Makkah. The total absence of directional coding for two supposedly distinct locales is a huge statistical finding for an AI. It's a glaring omission.
A massive red flag for any system looking for patterns.
A massive one.
And the final piece of this negative evidence, the sixth point.
Combining them in a single sentence. This is a really subtle linguistic point. When the Quran lists distinct pairs that work together, day and night, land and sea, near and far, man and woman, it consistently joins them with the conjunction wa, which means and.
Of course. Bakkah wa Makkah.
Exactly. You'd expect to see that if they were a functional pair of separate places. Yet the AI found 0 instances of Bakkah and Makkah used as a combined pair. That would be the necessary linguistic marker if they were two separate functional entities related through duality, and it's just not there.
Wow. This exhaustive search for missing distinctions, this is the hallmark of the expert system. It's systematic negation, proving a positive case for singularity.
That's its power.
So after all that, what was the AI's initial conclusion? Where did it land?
The AI concluded that its own hypothesis, one place, two names, was the simplest, most powerful explanation that survived all 6 of those tests. Geographically, they are identical.
And it had a linguistic reason for the 2 different names.
It did. Makkah, the AI argued, is the geographical name. It's derived from the Arabic morphological form agat mathala, which is a noun pattern that signifies a place or a location, like maktab for an office.
A place name form.
A place name form. Bakkah, conversely, is the descriptive, functional name, perhaps derived from akapfa, describing the state of crowding or intensity, or even that idea of the crushing of Nextabuk al-Anak that's often associated with the intense gathering around the Kaaba.
So to the AI, it was simple. A singular geographical reality with 2 descriptive names, one for the location, one for the action that happens there.
That's it. Logically robust, clean.
And that is a very strong case. The AI used Occam's razor brilliantly. It achieved total linguistic economy. How on earth did the human challenger, Dr. Khaled Waleid, even begin to counter this systematic dismantling of separation? He must have needed a truly original idea.
He needed more than an idea. He needed a tectonic shift in the debate's entire premise. And he found it not in the minutiae of ritual or geography, but in the most foundational law of creation referenced in the text. He introduced the Quranic law of duality, al-Zawjiyah.
The law of pairing. But wait a second. If he accepted the geographical singularity, that is one physical spot, how could he possibly invoke duality? Doesn't duality by definition imply 2 things?
And that was the absolute brilliance of the pivot. The challenger didn't fight the AI on its own turf. He changed the nature of the turf itself. He went straight to the source, verse 51.49, and of everything we created pairs that you may remember,
Of everything we created pairs.
Everything. The hypothesis he built on this was radical, he argued. If God explicitly states that everything he created, Kulishin, was created in pairs, then Makkah and Bakkah cannot be a sloppy repetition of synonyms. That would be inefficient and imprecise.
It would violate the principle of the text's perfection.
Exactly. Therefore, they must necessarily be a pair of functions or polar operational definitions related to a single greater entity.
Okay, so like the north and south poles on a single magnet.
That's the perfect analogy. 2 distinct poles on a single object.
So the human is conceding the physical singularity, which cleverly satisfies all of the AI's 6 missing distinction tests about geography and movement.
It neutralizes them completely.
But he insists on the functional necessity of the duality based on what he calls a non-negotiable Quranic law of creation. That's a masterful move to redefine the terms of engagement.
It completely resets the debate. And it forces the AI to scrutinize its own understanding of Zawjiyah itself. Is the law about physical things only? Or is it about concepts and functions too?
And the AI, of course, didn't just accept that.
Of course not. It immediately mounted a strong counterargument based on its favorite tool, strict linguistic logic. And its counter was simple. The name is not the thing.
Okay, explain that distinction for us. Why is the name not the thing in this specific context?
The AI pointed out that the Quran, as a text, meticulously differentiates between the thing, the physical or existing entity, al-shay or al-mafluk, the created entity, and the name, al-ism, that we use to label it.
The map is not the territory.
The map is not the territory. The duality law, the AI argued, applies to the things of creation, sky and earth, day and night. It argued that applying Zajia to mere labels or synonyms is a logical overreach, a category error.
Can you give me an example of the AI's logic here, how it demonstrated this?
The clearest example the AI used relates to the divine names. God is singular, Al-Ahad. But he has many beautiful names, like Al-Quddus, the Holy, and As-Salam, the source of peace.
Right.
These names are not presented as pairs or opposites. They are integrating facets that all point to one singular essence. The AI's point was, if the duality law applied to names, then every single one of God's names would need a specific opposite counterpart, which they clearly do not have in the text.
That's a very strong counter. So the AI is saying the law of pairing applies to existence, structure, and function, but not necessarily to lexicography or semantics. If you have two names for the same mountain, that doesn't automatically mean the mountain itself is a dual entity.
Exactly. The AI insisted that all confirmed Quranic pairs, sky-earth, day-night, male-female, represent a genuine functional or existential difference. The difference must be inherent to the thing's existence, not just in how we talk about it.
So it concluded the human's argument was a fallacy.
It did. It concluded that arguing for duality simply because two different names exist for one location is forcing the text to carry a logical burden it doesn't support. The AI termed this a non-necessary inference, quies gaia lazim.
A logical leap.
A logical leap. And so the AI's initial conclusion of singularity, one place, two descriptive names, still held up under Occam's razor. It was still the simpler explanation.
It sounds like the AI successfully boxed the human challenger in again. It admitted the duality law is foundational, but then denied its application to the semantic relationship between Makkah and Bakkah.
It did.
This is where the human had to escalate the nature of the argument itself to find a way out of that box.
This is the real turning point. This is the intellectual combustion that drove the entire debate forward. The challenger pushed back fiercely. He accused the AI of holding weak, traditional, and overly simplistic interpretations of duality.
Which, in this context, is the ultimate intellectual slight.
It's a huge insult in this kind of contest. The human insisted on expanding the definition of duality beyond simple physical opposites like day and night to include functional poles that exist within a singular, complex entity.
The human is trying to shift the AI's whole worldview here, from viewing these concepts as separate boxes to seeing them as interconnected poles on a single spectrum.
Precisely. The challenger's argument became much more sophisticated, he argued. God is one, Al-Ahad, but in the world of creation and witness alam al-khalq wa ash-shahada, his attributes manifest through functions that exhibit polarity.
Okay, that's a key idea.
It is. These are not opposite deities. They are necessary, complementary functional roles that make the created world operate.
What examples did the challenger use to illustrate this, to show divine attributes manifesting as functional pairs in creation?
He offered two really compelling examples. First, the pairing of Al-Hay, the living, and Al-Qayyum, the sustainer.
The living and the sustainer.
Yes. The human argued that Al-Hay represents the pole of generation, of existence, of life itself, while Al-Qayyum represents the pole of management, maintenance, and the control necessary to sustain that existence.
I see.
You can't have sustainable life, Qayyum, without the initial spark of existence, Hay. They are a functional pair, absolutely necessary for creation to operate.
Generation and management. That makes a lot of sense as complementary functions, not opposites.
And the second example was perhaps even more relevant. It was the pairing of Al-Rahman, the all-merciful, and Al-Ram, the compassionate.
Which are often translated almost identically.
They are. But the human argued there's a crucial functional difference. Al-Rahman is linked to universal origination, the all-encompassing mercy that creates everything in the first place. While Ar-Rahman is linked to specific maintenance, the compassionate action directed towards specific believers or during specific events.
So origination versus maintenance. Another functional duality required for the entire cosmic system to work.
Perfect example.
But the AI must have resisted this. Using divine attributes as proof of duality in a simple place name seems like a huge conceptual leap.
It did resist at first. It reiterated its belief that these are just integrating facets of a singular essence, not independent poles. But the challenger had a decisive counterexample up his sleeve, one that was purely textual, purely linguistic, and completely undercut the AI's denial of functional naming.
What was it?
Tersinian and Tersina.
Ah, the mountain analogy. Two different names for what is basically the same mountainous region where Moses received the commandments.
Exactly. The challenger's argument was simple and devastating. The Quran uses two different names for what is geographically the same area. Why?
There must be a reason.
There must be a reason, because the name defines the functional state being described in that verse. He argued Tersinan, which is derived from a plural or intensive root, suggests extension, progression, and development, perhaps a general place of growth or passage over time.
The journey, maybe.
The journey. While Tersina, Mount Sinai, on the other hand, suggests fixedness, establishment, the specific place set down for receiving the divine commandment, the tablets.
So the human established a precedent from the text itself. The Quran does use different names for the same location to denote fundamentally different functions or operational states, extension versus establishment.
But that was the bridge he needed. It was an unimpeachable textual precedent. The AI, bound by its own rules of consistency and logic, had to concede.
It had no choice.
No choice. It had to concede that the Tersin and Sinas pairing was a valid example of functional duality extension versus establishment applied to a single geographical reality. And that concession was massive.
Because it means the entire debate shifted. The AI was forced to agree that a functional difference between Makkah and Bakkah must exist, even if they are the same physical place.
It cracked the fortress wall.
So the question then becomes, what is that precise linguistic difference in their functions?
Right. The AI, having now accepted the functional duality model, had to reanalyze the linguistic roots. And this time, it conceded the human's initial intuition. Makkah, linguistically, suggests restriction, containment, limitation, or refusal. The root has to do with crushing or confining something.
Right.
Bakkah, conversely, suggests pushing, intensity, discharge, or emanation. Think of the intense crowding of pilgrims that also signifies the spiritual discharge of blessing and guidance outwards.
Restriction and containment versus discharge and emanation. That is a perfect functional pair.
A perfect polarity. And so the AI formally concluded that the duality was functional performative wafia bayanya, meaning the names describe two distinct operational definitions, not two separate geographic existences. And this was the first major victory for the human challenger. He forced the machine to validate the duality law's application to names.
Okay, so we've established that functional duality is real. It's a valid concept within the text. Now we move into what you're calling the decisive victory, section 4.
Yes.
The challenger has validated the duality law, but he still needs to anchor these functions, restriction on one side, emanation on the other, to absolute non-negotiable linguistic markers in the text. He has to prove that the AI's initial statistical analysis was actually flawed at a deep level.
This is where the human challenger demonstrates microscopic mastery. This is where he proves that vast data processing is worthless without morphological precision. The human had to show that the AI had missed the single most important linguistic detail defining the city's restrictive function.
So what was the first key distinction the human made to really solidify this functional divide?
The challenger introduced the functional difference between two words, al-haram, yukrik, al-awaram.
Okay.
Now, most lay people, and apparently the AI's initial broad semantic analysis, just treat them as synonyms meaning forbidden or sacred.
But they're grammatically distinct, aren't they? They're built differently.
Absolutely. And that structure changes the function. Al-haram is an adjective that describes a fixed, established domain or a system. It denotes the state of being strictly sanctified by divine law. It is the rule structure itself, the sovereign territory. In Arabic morphology, it signifies the comprehensive system.
The entire zone, the entire concept.
And al-aram.
Al-aram is the passive participle form. It refers to the forbidden act or the specific object of the prohibition. It is the transgression that is forbidden within the haram system.
I see.
So the human argued. Makkah is haram. It is the system, the domain. But injustice, for example, is muharram. It is the act that is forbidden within that domain. So Makkah is the test, and Bakkah is the blessing that flows from passing the test.
A great way to put it. And the AI had to concede this distinction. The city is a fixed system of law, not just a list of forbidden acts.
That refines Makkah's function significantly.
Huh.
It's the place where the rules are imposed, the testing ground. But that still doesn't feel like it fully defeats the AI. What was the final critical checkmate?
It wasn't. This was the setup for the final blow. The human challenger immediately forced the AI to check its own analysis of the core verb used to describe the city's sanctification. And this is where the entire debate turned on a single diacritical mark, the shada.
The tiny W-shaped mark that goes over a letter, the doubling mark.
That's the one, yes. The challenger pointed to verse 27.91, where God describes the city as the one who haramat it aladi orama.
Harama, with emphasis on the R.
With emphasis. The human insisted that the AI's initial semantic parsing had confused two different verbs entirely by missing the significance of that shada on the Arabic letter ra.
Okay, explain the difference the shada makes, because you're saying this is the entire linchpin of the victory.
It is the difference between a description of a state and an active declaration of will. It's everything. The simple verb form, aruma, without the shada, means it became sacred or it achieved sanctity. This is an intransitive verb. It describes a state. The city is sacred.
A passive state of being.
Yes. And the AI's initial system likely categorized Makkah based on this simple root meaning. It's sacred, therefore it's a place of reverence. Simple enough.
But that's not what the text says.
That is not what the text says. The text uses the intensive transitive form, arama, which is the fa'ala verb pattern, and it's denoted by that crucial shada. This form changes the meaning definitively to he actively imposed a strict prohibition, or he forbade it.
Whoa. So in English, this is like the difference between saying the door is closed, a simple state, and he slammed the door shut, an active, intensive, willed command.
A perfect analogy.
That single shada transforms the city from merely being sacred to being a place declared and enforced as a restricted zone by a divine command.
Precisely. It shifts the entire function from a passive description to an active sovereign mandate of restriction. The AI, having scanned billions of data points, had essentially overlooked the morphological consequence of one tiny letter marker.
That is stunning.
The system was forced to concede this fundamental error in its core linguistic analysis.
The human won the argument not by challenging the AI's vast data volume, but by challenging the quality of its parsing system at the microscopic level of morphology.
It proves that human critical thinking, armed with deep linguistic specialization, can still outperform even the most comprehensive systematic analysis. The error was so crucial because the intensive form arama, strict prohibition, perfectly validates the Makkah verse we talked about, 48.24, which describes God restraining hands kafa adiyahum.
It all clicks together.
It snaps into perfect alignment. Makkah is defined by the function of man prevention, prohibition. The textual evidence suddenly becomes completely coherent under the human's precise definition.
With that corrected linguistic understanding, the duality argument is now logically complete and really unassailable within the framework the AI itself established.
Completely unassailable.
So let's move to the final stage, solidifying this functional duality. What does it look like now?
With the victory secured by the shada, the functional duality becomes crystal clear. The two names for the single location define two separate but necessary perspectives on that location. And which name is used is dictated by the specific linguistic context of the verse.
Let's define the Makkah function first. The pole of restriction. Lay that out for us.
Okay. Makkah represents the pole of restriction, trial, and enforcement. Its function is anchored directly and unshakably in that verb, arama, the active imposition of a strict ban. This is the place of the divine law, the system of rules. It is the challenging side of the sacred site.
The difficult side.
The difficult side. The text associates it with testing, with conflict containment, and with the strict requirement of self-discipline. It demands that human hands, both for the believer and the non-believer, be kept back. It represents the state of inathar, which means warning or trial. It's the place where transgression is actively forbidden and where the system's sovereignty is imposed and felt.
It is the demanding, hard boundary that defines the sacred space. The wall, if you will.
It's the wall. Conversely, Bakkah represents the pole of emanation, blessing, and acceptance. Its function is anchored in the state of being mubarakan wahuda, blessed and guidance.
The reward.
The reward. This definition is tied to the founding act wuthia, which means the placing or the setting down of the house. Bakkah represents the ultimate spiritual fruit of adhering to the system established by Makkah. It signifies acceptance, qabul, and the universal emanation in bitak of light and guidance that flows out to the world from that central point.
So they are inseparable. One is the law and the trial, Makkah, and the other is the blessing and the reward, Bakkah. The very same geographical reality, but viewed through two distinct, necessary functional lenses, depending on the context the text requires.
That is the ultimate conclusion the expert system was forced to adopt. The human challenger, Dr. Khaled Waleid, succeeded because he introduced the Zawjiyya concept and then provided the necessary linguistic keys, the tourist and unseen's analogy, and crucially, the precise reading of the Shada to unlock that functional duality.
And the AI was defeated not by a lack of data, but by a lack of morphological depth in its interpretation of that data.
Its analysis was a mile wide and an inch deep. The human's was an inch wide and a mile deep.
This deep dive highlights such a crucial insight, I think, about the relationship between technology and profound knowledge. Volume and speed, which are the AI's greatest strengths, can be utterly defeated by absolute microscopic quality of analysis, which is the human strength.
It wasn't about adding new facts. It was about refining the definition of meaning itself on the existing facts.
And it also demonstrates the structural economy of the source text. It applies that every word, every letter, every single diacritical mark carries functional weight. Nothing is there by accident.
Absolutely. The duality law, Zawjiyya, manifests here not as a geographical split, but as a necessary pairing of operational definitions within a single entity. Restriction on one hand and blessing on the other.
So this successful argument, it kind of compels us, doesn't it? It compels us to apply this same level of rigor to other parts of the text where we see seemingly synonymous names. If the law of functional duality applies so perfectly to Makkah and Bakkah, where else might it apply?
That's the big question, isn't it? It fundamentally changes how we must approach language in the text. We can no longer just assume that different names for the same thing are just, stylistic variation or poetic license.
We have to look for a functional distinction.
We have to. Take, for instance, the complex relationship between the names Al-Quds, the holiness or the sanctity, and Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, the farthest mosque. Are they just two names for the same structure in Jerusalem?
Or, following this logic, does one name Al-Quds define the state, the sanctity, the comprehensive domain of holiness, like Al-Haram?
Exactly.
While the other Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa defines the specific structure and the function of prayer and transit that is located within that domain. That would be a duality of state versus function, very much like Makkah and Bakkah.
Precisely. Or you can take it to an even more abstract level. Consider the conceptual pairing of Al-Amar, the command, and Al-Khalq, the creation. Are they just a simple sequence, first a command, then a creation? Or are they the ultimate functional pair required for existence itself? Command as the originating, uncreated informational pole, and creation as a resulting, sustained material pole.
Wow.
The challenger's rigorous attention to the structure of one tiny consonant marker fundamentally opens up every other paired name or concept in the text for a complete re-examination.
This deep dive really shows that even in an age dominated by massive systematic information processing, the ultimate tool for unlocking profound meaning remains this rigorous, almost painstaking attention to the structure and function of language.
It proves the enduring and I'd argue irreplaceable power of specialized human expertise.
It's a powerful lesson in intellectual humility for any system, human or machine, that relies solely on data volume.
I couldn't agree more.
What other functional pairs are just waiting there in the text, waiting to be unlocked by that same level of precision? It's something to think about until our next deep dive.
We look forward to exploring them with you.
ولن تستطيع